last summer, Kate enjoyed her career with the City of Ottawa in the Social Services Department, where she felt that she could make a small difference in the lives of individuals and communities. Before working at the city, she had formal education in accounting and in pastoral counseling, but she still feels that the activity that has taught her the most about life was her stint as a bartender for a few years in the 1980s. That'll work for you, that's for sure. Kate is certified as a spiritual director by Unity Worldwide Ministries and finds great fulfillment in accompanying others on their spiritual path. Currently, she fills her time with spiritual pursuits and practices, volunteer work, family and friends, and 3 book clubs that she belongs to. She admits, however, that some days she just can't wait to curl up in front of the TV for the evening. Awesome. Well, Kate, thank you for being here today, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I leave it to you.
Thank you, C. Good morning, everyone. I just have to warn you that just like 2 seconds ago, my internet crapped out on me. It never does that. I don't know why it did. I don't know what to expect. I'm seeing the little sign that looks pretty strong now. So I'm just going to go ahead, but I'm going to have my talk up on the screen. So if something goes wrong, C, maybe you can text me and let me know that there's an issue. Anyway, sorry about that. Let's talk to the technical spirits. So, some of you know the feeling when you're happily crunching, chomping down on your favorite cookie, and suddenly there's that unmistakable crack, and you know you've broken a tooth. Well, that happened to me last weekend. This past Thursday, I tootled off to the dentist. My dentist is in a clinic in the Rideau Centre, which is a large mall right downtown in Ottawa, if you don't know. So I was walking along through the mall on my way to the clinic. As I was walking by the food court, I saw a Buddhist monk with all his beautiful saffron orange and purplish robes at the counter of the A&W. I overheard him order a Beyond Meat burger. He said, "Make me one with everything." I apologize, that's a bit of a groaner. I just can't seem to help myself. I always want to start with a joke. It's a bit of a compulsion, really. Anyway, what I really want to talk to you about today is mysticism. When I say the word mysticism, people have all kinds of ideas about what that could mean. What is a mystic? So here's a working definition that I'm going to use. There's many ways, as I said, but in general, a mystic is someone who is open to, and every so often has, direct experiences of God in their life. What is a mystical experience? Again, lots of people have talked about this. I believe that all of us have mystical experiences, whether we call them that or not. They can be big or small. For example, what about premonitions? For instance, I always know if I'm going to win something. If I'm somewhere where door prizes are being given out, or when I used to be single and going to friends' weddings and the bride would throw the bouquet, I always knew when I was going to win. When I'm at a cashier and there are lottery tickets for sale, I always figure that if I'm going to win one of them, I will feel it calling out to me. Sadly, that hasn't happened yet. Many mystical experiences take place in nature. Have you ever been walking in nature and experienced a deep sense of peace or awe? I'd be very surprised if you haven't. A friend of mine told me about her recent trip to Newfoundland. She was all by herself and would drive to places of staggering beauty. And as she stood, looking out over the vista of ocean or mountains, tears would begin to trickle down her cheeks. Now, my friend is not a crier. She had no real context for understanding what was happening to her, but she had had time recently to bring spiritual practices into her daily routine. She'd started to feel excited about some spiritual movement within. However, simply driving her around the island, she wasn't particularly thinking about spiritual things. What then was happening to her in those moments when the tears came? My own spiritual journey started with a mystical experience of nature. My apologies if you've already heard this story. I moved out to Jasper, Alberta to get away from all of my problems and to find myself. I was in my mid-20s and had never had any religious or spiritual upbringing. There in the mountains, I decided I wouldn't think about all the problems in my life. I would simply hike in the beauty and serenity of the mountains. A strange thing happened on one of those hikes. I looked at the towering majesty of the mountains and suddenly thought, I'm so small. And then I thought, how can I think that my problems are so big when I'm so tiny on this earth? That thought changed my life. Where did it come from? So now what I think happened was I stopped thinking and spirit snuck in like a thief in the night. Or maybe more like, say, the sweetness of the first bite of that first strawberry that you've just picked on a hot sunny day. Or like when your child jumps out at you and yells boo and then collapses in a fit of giggles. Or like the black and white warbler that landed for a few minutes on my son-in-law's head at the cottage one year. I'm pretty sure you have a sense of what I'm talking about. I'm sure you could tell us all about similar experiences you've had. You likely wouldn't be here today if you haven't already had some sort of mystical experience. Here at Unity, the white stone ceremony that we do at New Year's involves a meditation that is meant to evoke a mystical experience. In a still, quiet meditation, you listen for a word to come to you, your new name, and it signifies a new beginning. For the most part, we can't really force a mystical experience. We can only be open to them. C.S. Lewis, who's mainly known for writing the Chronicles of Narnia, recounted his experience of just this sort of thing in his memoir called Surprised by Joy. Isn't that a wonderful title? If we can stop thinking, stop the whirlwind of thoughts that are continuously swirling in our heads, which I once heard our previous minister, Roxanne, call the itty bitty shitty committee, then we're open to the movement of spirit and joy within us. C.S. Lewis referred to them as stabs of joy. And don't we feel blessed when we experience them? So, is there a way that we can cultivate the spirit of joy? Are there tools and techniques we can use to open us to experiencing this joy more often? Yes, and you're probably already doing some of them. We call those tools our spiritual practices. A person's spirituality refers to their solitary search for and discovery of the divine. It involves the direct experience of God, which, as I've said, is the definition of mysticism. Spirituality derives from mysticism and from mystical experience. Being spiritual means you've made a personal commitment to engage yourself in a search for meaning, looking for your authentic self, looking for the movement of God in your life. Spiritual practices include meditation, yoga, periods of solitude, being in nature, music, chanting, mantras, walking, hiking, practicing an energy martial art like Tai Chi or Aikido. Books and teachers are helpful, but ultimately you must find your own path. So how do you discover the best spiritual practices for you? You listen in an attitude of receiving, and the grace of Spirit will guide you. It's about learning to live in a way that honors the divine reality that lives in you every day, every moment. It can be hard work. If we're serious about living as a spiritual being, we have to work to cut ourselves free from the conditioning of our Western culture, which is almost blind to spiritual life. This is where noticing our thoughts becomes crucial. If your thoughts are going a mile a minute, thinking about what you have to do tomorrow and next month, regretting what you did yesterday and last week, beating yourself up for being something someone once told you you shouldn't be, or for not being something you think you should be, it becomes almost impossible for God to get in. And God is there within you, waiting to be seen, to be heard, felt, sending you those joyous experiences, which, if you can only stop for a moment, you would see are all around you. Well, Kate, I can hear you say, it's not that easy to stop those thoughts. They've been with me all my life. Have they, though? Babies are not born with those thoughts circulating in their brains. They come into the world ready to experience wonder and awe. And don't we love watching a 2-year-old explore the world with a rapture on their face? They are so completely open to the moment, and they expect the moment to be fun and to be full of joy. This is what Jesus meant in Matthew 18 when he said, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." By the time the child starts school, they've already started to be conditioned on how to act, what to think, what's good, what's bad. Their brains are already beginning to swirl. And as we come to realize it, it can take years, decades even, to reverse the conditioning that we've learned in childhood. But we reverse it, we must. It's the only way for us to access our true self, our authentic center, the place where we and God come together. Out of mystical and spiritual experience flows a sense of harmony, peace, and love, a sense of the preciousness of life. We begin to accept ourselves and others and their foibles, and start to let go of the need to control. Once we've been touched, we are changed forever. The spiritual journey has begun. Once acknowledged, we can never unacknowledge the presence. Some of you might be thinking that sounds awfully good, but my practices don't seem to be moving me along very effectively on this path. All is in divine order, I will say to you. But I could also recommend a tool to you, one that you maybe haven't tried yet. So I'd like to recommend a form of meditation called centering prayer. Centering prayer was developed by Father Thomas Keating, who was a Trappist monk who lived in a monastery in Massachusetts and died in 2018 at the age of 95. Centering prayer teaches us a simple method of emptying our thoughts to help you reach the stillness of God. It has 4 steps. So if you're one who likes to make notes, here comes a good model for you. Step number 1, choose a word. It's going to serve as a reminder to you of your intention to spend time in the stillness of God. It can be any word, but it's probably most helpful if it's a word or a short phrase that has some meaning for you. It could be something like love, peace, the universe, home, anything that feels right. It might even come to you spontaneously as you try this meditation. Step 2, sit quietly think about your word, and then express your consent to having God's presence act within you. Step 3, let go of your word and turn your focus to your heart center, the place of stillness where you connect with spirit. As you sit in stillness, thoughts will inevitably arise and crowd into your awareness. Don't fight them, but when you become aware that you are thinking again, just turn back gently towards your heart space and whisper your word to yourself. Do this as often as you need to in order to return to the stillness. Step 4, maintain your meditation for a certain amount of time and then slowly come back to normal awareness. You might want to set a timer. Try it in ever increasing lengths of time, maybe starting at 5 minutes. The beauty of this practice for me is that it gives me something to do when the thoughts start spinning. It'll become easier as you go, and eventually you'll find that spirit does most of the work for you. As you find yourself constantly releasing thought after thought and returning to spirit, you will be well on your spiritual journey. You will find that the journey is more about what we release than what we acquire on the way. Another spiritual practice is walking in nature. Here's a quote from Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore. "Nature is surely the glorified face of God. See the beauty about you and see the manifestation of the infinite mind." I know many of you already know that being in nature can soothe the soul, make you feel renewed, lift your spirits, and open you up to peace and joy. Do you ever wonder why that is? Isaac Denison wrote the book Out of Africa. In it, she tells a story about walking in the jungle and coming across a beautiful snake with gleaming skin of gorgeous colors. Later, a houseman who heard her raving about the beauty of the snake went out and killed the snake and made it into a belt for her. This caused her much dismay, and also in part because the beautiful shiny skin that had so captivated her was now dull and gray. The beauty had not been in the skin itself, but in the wonderful aliveness of the creature. Life energy. When we walk in nature, the life energy, or what we in Unity called God or Source or Spirit, is all around us. It's the aliveness of God moving in all creation. And of course, the movement of God is in us too. In his book, The Mystic Heart, author Wayne Teasdale talks about mystical experience and the mystic character. Mystical experiences are what happens to us when God reaches out to us. The mystic character is one that we actively, mindfully develop in order to cultivate our connection with God. Cynthia Bourgeot is an Episcopal priest who lives in Maine in the US and leads retreats and conferences all over the world. In her book, Mystical Hope, she tells us that as human beings, we are gifted with self-reflexive consciousness. This is our ability to look at ourselves from the point of view outside of ourselves, as if we can objectively see ourselves. Because of this, we think of ourselves as distinct and unique individuals. As far as we know, no other species on Earth has this ability. This allows us to describe ourselves like, I'm a cat person. I like to have order in my life. Or conversely, I love going to horror movies. It also allows us to mentally project ourselves into the future or to remember the past. We have imagination. We can problem solve. We can push ourselves to greater achievements. And therein lies the problem. Some people call this sense of individuality, of separateness, the ego. And I suspect you've all heard about how the ego can get us into trouble. The ego is chronically anxious, afraid of its separateness, and continually striving for more. More praise, more money, more love, to overcome that terrible sense of being separate. We have distorted our ability to feel unique to the extent that we create feelings of scarcity and danger where none exist. The further along we get on our spiritual journey, the more we develop our mystic character, the more we realize that this egoic way of thinking is all wrong. As we listen to the wisdom of our hearts, as we become sensitive to all other beings, human and otherwise, and accept them as they are, and as our focus shifts away from our separate, egoic self, we open ourselves to a life lived in the peace that passes all understanding. We can feel joy even in the most difficult of circumstances. Eckhart Tolle talks about staying in the present moment. You might have heard about his book, The Power of Now. For Buddhists, staying in the present moment means practicing mindfulness. When you stay in the present moment, you're being mindful. When you're being mindful, your thoughts recede into the background. You focus on your senses, what you see, what you hear, you touch, you smell, the taste. For example, instead of worrying about how horrible the whole experience of getting my mouth frozen at the dentist is going to be, and yes, that is coming up in my not too distant future, I can instead focus on how delicious my morning cup of tea tastes, how warm it feels as I swallow it, how wonderful the sense of the smell of the chai spices. Doesn't change the fact that I have dental freezing in my future, but it feels positive. And really, when has worrying about something I can't change ever done me any good? Here's a little known secret. The only place you can ever connect with God is in the present moment. So practice being mindful. Calm those thoughts. Relish the present moment with your senses, and you will open to a greater reality. The beauty in this moment is greater than you can ever imagine. The spiritual journey is a mystical journey. Every person's journey is unique. Like no two snowflakes are the same. You are on the right path. It's mysterious and it's intimate and it opens up into joy. Namaste. Please join me now in a meditation that I've prepared. Get yourself comfortable. Feel the chair underneath you. Feel the freshness of the air all around you. Feel your breath as you inhale and exhale. If you wish, please close your eyes. I'm going to read a poem by Mary Oliver. I'm going to read it 4 times, and each time I'll suggest a different way for you to listen for what it is saying. And then we'll pause in a brief silence. The poem is called Mindful. So if you're comfortable, for the first reading, please just listen to the words. Don't try to do anything else. Here's the poem. Every day I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in a haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the oceans shine, the prayers that are made out of grass. Now, when I read it again, listen for meaning and understanding. What does it tell me about the universe? Be open to receiving a meaning rather than assigning a meaning. Every day I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the oceans shine, the prayers that are made out of grass. This time, pay attention to your emotional response. Listen deeply and share with spirit. Every day I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the oceans shine, the prayers that are made out of grass. I'm going to read it one last time. Try to rest in a quiet, receptive silence. Let go of all your thoughts and images. Let spirit come to you. Every day I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass. Now I invite you to come back into this space that we've created together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and for meditating with me. And thank you, Spirit, for this wonderful opportunity for connection. Have a wonderful day, everyone.